entitled Grandma Durham's Chicken and Dumplings, Authentic Southern Recipe. And it has 70,000 views. I made it a long time ago when I didn't have that many subscribers. Now I got around 5,000. But the comment section is pretty rowdy under that video because it says authentic Southern recipe, and there's some debate about whether the dumplings should be flat or fluffy or in balls. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's fun to have it out there and have people interested in it. And my Grandma Durham is probably a lot of the reason, because it's almost like a historic recipe. She taught me that when I was 10 years old. And my mom used to be a public school teacher in Detroit in the 1950s, and she taught home economics. They would teach all the girls. I don't think there were boys allowed in those classes. They were high school girls. She would teach them how to sew. They had banks of Singer sewing machines. Or to type. They had, no, I think typing was a separate class. But the only jobs that girls could get in those days was an operator. That's what my mom did, and then she got her teaching degree. She was a teacher, nurses, maids, and strippers. I don't know. There wasn't much opportunity for women in the 1950s, and my mom was very young. Now she's in her late 80s, and so the recipes she taught me, that she taught in home economics to the girls who are now in their 70s, are like a piece of history, and it's pretty cool. So I remember, and I made them recently, recipe, main course to feed your family, which is called beef pinwheels. So we're going to use these ingredients: cream of mushroom soup. I got the good kind, not the low sodium, low fat. This is, we're going to mimic the 1950s. And this is some ground beef. My mom objects to this now because they sell it in a tube. You can't see through the package to see what you're getting. But I've used this for so long that it's good stuff. I know that their quality is consistent. And I like this 80-20. We got a red onion. White will work for this recipe. For a side dish, we've got green giant corn. I don't know, I don't watch TV anymore, but they used to advertise from the Valley of the Jolly, green giant. And the joke at school, when I was a little kid, was, why does Hills Brothers make their coffee in the hills? And the answer is, because the green giant peed in the valley. Alright, I'm trying to keep it grandkid friendly here. What I'm going to do is make like a jelly roll of ground beef mixed with onions and cream of mushroom soup. Very simple. Throw in some salt and pepper, and this will be crumbled up, and then we're going to roll these out. We'll spread this on, and then we'll roll them up like a cinnamon roll. But it will, and then we'll slice them. Spread them out on a pan, bake them, and then we'll use the other can of cream of mushroom soup. It's like a gravy ladle over these things. So if you do it right, it's nice and flaky like a pie crust. So it's going to be a blast. Stay tuned. The first thing most recipes tell you to do is preheat the oven so that it's getting warm while you're making whatever you're going to be baking. And that is right. However, my mom taught in home ec that before you turn on the oven, check the oven, because somebody might have left or been storing pots and pans, cookie sheets, whatever in there, and you want to get them out of there for two reasons. If there's any residue on them as the oven preheats, it's going to burn that residue and you'll smell something funky. And the second reason is because if you preheat the oven and there are pots and pans in there, and then you're about to cook and you find them, they're going to be red hot. And so you have to have a safe place to put them down. So you set the oven to 400 degrees after you've checked to make sure that you're not going to smoke up the house. Pretty scary power boost. I like the sound of that. I want 1/3 of this because that's a pound on a 3-pound tube like this. I got a non-stick pan, so I'm not greasing the pan. That'll be fine, but it is going into a hot pan. Listen for the sizzle. Let's zoom in. Just for the fun of it. Come on. Come on. Que bueno! Are we up at boost level? No, we're not. Let's go for it. And quite easily amused. But that's why I love to cook. I love the sounds. I love the sizzle. I love the chopping and the sauteing and the smells. See, you miss a lot if you just watch the video. Something smells so right about frying ground beef. I could feel so much heat coming around. So I am going to turn it down just a bit because the flame size exceeds the pan circumference. Or diameter, I'm sorry. Like this. You want to continue to break up the pieces of ground beef because otherwise they cook into like a solid mass, like a dirt clod or a meatball that nobody put any effort into, and that's not what we want because it will make the beef pinwheels lumpy. So this is a recipe, unlike chili or spaghetti sauce, where you could leave this to cook right now, but it would cook into mini burgers. We don't want that. We want to keep breaking it up as it cooks because we want more of a uniform ground beef than in clumps. It'll mix better with the sauce we're using to flavor it, and it'll roll up better in the pie crust. Now in the 1950s, there was no such thing as a refrigerated pie crust that you could buy like I have from Pillsbury. So the housewives had to make it from scratch, but that would have been no problem for them because there wasn't much alternative. So that was part of learning to cook, was putting out pies. One of the tests of a cook and his crew A lumber camp lived and died by the food they were feeding to the hard-working men. And so part of the pay that those men got, they were usually immigrants or sons of pioneer farmers. Part of their pay and why they loved that job, they're outside, and 4 times a day they got a full meal of really good food. So the cooks had to be really good, or the men would walk away from the lumber camp in protest. So the cooks had a ton of power, but a ton of responsibility. And one of the tests of a cook and his helpers, like for the job interview, would be, all right, show me how quick your team can make 100 apple pies. Isn't that awesome? I bet they could bang them out with a wood-fired stove. Here's what I like to do. When it's cooking like this, and it's bubbling and boiling, half of that is moisture, and the other half is grease. The half we want to boil down and keep in that, because it's so flavorful. There's the juice of the burger, that's the moisture. So we're just going to cook it a little longer to boil off that moisture, but leave behind what's distilled like maple syrup, and that's that beef flavor. Just a paper cup. When it sizzles, that moisture is gone and it's just grease. I want to drain some of the grease. I don't want to be that meticulous about it because I don't think in the 1950s they would waste all that good hamburger fat. That's looking good, isn't it? Pinch of salt. I would add pepper at this point also, but I'm making this also for my mom and dad who are elderly, and I don't want them having any issues with the pepper digestion wise. So I'm going to turn this down, and actually I'm going to turn it off, but I'm not going to let it cool down. We're going to quickly roll out the dough, put this on the dough and roll it up while it's hot, because that makes for a lighter dough when the whole shebang gets cooked and pulled out of the oven. Easy open box. We're going to use both of these. Don't try cutting these packages open with a dull knife or ripping them and biting them with your teeth. There's no point to it. You got to have your kitchen shears and get them out of there in a delicate way. And your kitchen shears should be clean always. Stick them in the dishwasher after you use them. You also saw I had a hairnet on. And the reason that I wear a hairnet is because of a bad experience. You cook for the people you love and you want them to be happy with what you cook, and then somebody finds a hair in something they're eating, and it's... Luckily, I had short hair. It could not be traced back to me. But it's kind of unnerving when you're hoping that they're loving everything you're doing and actually they're grossed. So I'm just laying this out. I have some flour here. I think I might put some flour down. Just keep it from sticking while I do my thing. This is a beautiful product, isn't it? There we go. There's our mixture. Goes right on there. We're going to make like a thin layer. I'm going to put half, and then on the other dough we'll do the other half. I think that's half. What do you think? I bet they're both right. When I worked at Domino's making pizzas, you really got good at spreading the sauce out with a spoon. And then that skill really doesn't leave you, just because it's been decades since you were flying the pies for Domino's. They used to have a thing where your pizza would be delivered in 30 minutes from the time you called, or it was free. And so you had these crazy drivers for Domino's trying to get the pizza there in 30 minutes or less, but they kept getting in accidents. Oh, I can feel this dough rising because I put that almost boiling sauce. That's fascinating. Alright, now will it work? I bet you. Where's my sharp knife? Gotta wash it. I used it to cut open the hamburger. So, you don't want these higher than about 1.5 inches. See, wider. Because when you're cutting down on them with your fork, you don't want them that tall, because you can't get a bite-sized piece. I love beef pinwheels. I was raised on them. That's funny. The texture now is like soft leather. When I put on this hot beef mixture, it starts to warm up, actually cook the dough. And it puffs up that quickly. As soon as its temperature changes to warm. That's awesome. Okay, that batch is going to Mom and Dad's. This batch is staying here for my dinner. See how my fingerprints just push right in because the hot meat has made it, the whole thing of dough made it really soft as it starts to rise. See how easy it is to make them round again, even though they're flattened like a strudel. Alright, these other four I'll put in a different pan. In the oven they go. See what I mean about the texture? You want it to be nice and creamy so it flows. This has a really good flavor. The crust is kind of delicate. It's flaky, but it's light because I put that ground beef in there hot. And it began the cooking from the inside. It's really a good recipe. Maybe long forgotten, but now you know about it. Here we go. The cream of mushroom soup is a really good flavor. It has been around for so long, and a cooking staple in green bean casseroles and all kinds of things call for cream of mushroom soup. So you're starting with a really good product that everybody loves, and then you're taking it and mixing it with ground beef and wrapping it in pie crust and covering it with this rich sauce. It is a really good recipe. Beef pinwheels. Thanks for watching. Oh, give me a thumbs up and a share. And also, I mentioned Grandma Durham's chicken and dumpling. That's another retro recipe, so I'll put the link. It'll be up there or down below. in the About section. Leave me a comment too if I'm not doing this right, or if you've ever heard of this recipe, because I have never met anyone who has. So I'm sure there are people out there. And my mom taught them. I think it was Lincoln Park in the 50s. Lincoln Park High School? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But I'm sure somebody out there will stumble on this recipe and think, oh, Miss Durham. I remember her and her beef pinwheels.